Since this is being released on Christmas Day, I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. So as you see in the thumbnail, we're going to be making a Nightlight. That's what this week's project is. And that's actually a 1 liter bottle, squeeze bottle that I've cut the top off of. And as you can see, I'm hot melt gluing the bottom of it to make sure that it doesn't leak. Yeah, and again, this week we're using the solid deep casting epoxy resin from designer Epoxy. And it's a 2 parts A, 1 part B mix ratio. I think with most epoxies, the mixing is very important. And in this case, I mix for 2 minutes. And we're adding a little bit of emerald green to this for our Christmas tree. I could have mixed it stronger, but I was a little worried about the light coming through it. So I went a little easy on the mix. And I just pour any remaining epoxy into these silicone molds for future use. So what I'm doing here is, besides making a mess of those cups, is I'm using all the different pigments that I have on hand, and I'm going to pour it into these, or into that silicone mold. And then from there, I'll be able to break them up and create tree lights and ornaments, that kind of thing for the outside of the tree. This is pretty much all of the pigments that I own. So you enter the pressure pot for 36 hours at 60 psi. I didn't bother with putting those in the pressure pot. Yeah, so 36 hours later, take it out, and looks to be good and clear with no bubbles, so that's great. And as always, a joy to get out. The only thing that was really holding this one in was the hot melt glue at the base. So same thing with these. These were still quite flexible, which was good because I was able to actually cut them up with a little box cutter knife. Very tedious. Okay, so anyway, that's about 2.5 hours, maybe a little more. So anyway, these are going to simulate our lights and our ornaments, so that's what these are. So let's go to the lathe and get our tree blank turned down, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, so just got this mounted between centers to get it trued up and to turn a tenon on the base of it so we can grab it with the chuck. Again, I'm using a 5/8 bowl gouge and a 3/16 parting tool. This stuff was just cutting like butter. I must say, the most irritating thing about turning resin is how it wraps around the piece, around the chuck, around the live center. There's just no end to it. Until you can get that live center away from the, the top of the tree, it's just a constant battle shutting the lathe on and off to get rid of the resin. Other than that, I really enjoy turning it. So yeah, I'm just parting in here at the base of the tree to define where the base is going to be. And then I just used lined paper and laid out where the branches are going to be. Now that's a tool called a skew gouge. This one came from Lee Valley here in Canada. And it does a good job. It's a little more forgiving than a skew is. I'm predominantly a bowl guy. I don't do a lot of center work. And as you can tell, there's no flutes with it. It's just shaped like a gouge with no flute. Certainly a lot more forgiving to use than a skew is. So that's why I like using it. Just double checking things here because it didn't look right, but it was. Yeah, there is a link in the description below to Lee Valley where you can actually get one of these tools if you're interested in getting one. Yeah, so here I'm using the 3.5-inch dimple discs like I always do. If you've been with me here for a while, you know that I like to power sand. I like to power sand everything. It's just faster and it gives you a better finish. Anyway, there's a link in the description for 10% off your next order. Check them out, sandpaper.ca. And that's 60 to 400. Yeah, so here I'm using the Solid Pro Series from designer Epoxy as a binding agent. I just really would like the resin to be a little bit thicker so that all those little resin bits will stick to it better. Yep, we're going to have a mess. Of course, I forgot to put gloves on. It's just something that you could probably fool with forever. So I'm just going to let this run for a little bit and hopefully that epoxy really starts to harden up and then we can move on to casting it. Yeah, so here I'm prepping the base for the Nightlight, and I decided to use a 4-inch plastic conduit as the mold. Kind of wish I hadn't have, and you'll see coming up why. But anyway, just cut it off on the bandsaw and cleaned it up on my disc sander as well for a nice snug fit in the conduit. Yeah, I figured now would be a good time to measure out an area where we're going to put the battery and the wiring for the Nightlight. And I seen actually Ben Works from Australia do this last weekend, and I thought it was a really good idea. So I'm using his idea here. I believe that's a 1.5 inch Forstner bit that I'm using. And those little ears will be where I'll put screws to hold the cover in place. They're parting the tree off of its waste block. Just finish it up with a handsaw. Just cleaning the base up. Need it perfectly flat. Yeah, just mixing up some 6-minute epoxy here from Gorilla Glue. I want to make sure that the tree stayed centered on that base before it went into the 4-inch conduit. Again, it's important that this doesn't leak. It was important that none of the epoxy escaped past the conduit in the wood and then filled in the area at the base where the battery's going to sit, because that wouldn't have been any fun to get out. Again, I'm just using some tuck tape to make sure that that doesn't happen. Really, really good tape for a situation like this. Again, mixing up some more deep cast for the clear part of the globe. Into the pressure pot again for another couple of days. This does take some planning. Looks pretty good. Boys, it's crystal clear. I'm really happy with that. Might have to wait another day for it to harden up a bit. Now, if you recall, I didn't put any mold release in here, and the reason for that is because I needed to make sure that the base didn't actually get any resin go by it. So I had to glue that in, and I knew that if I put mold release in there that it probably wouldn't work that as good. So that's why that's like that. So anyway, I'm just going to come over and cut this off on the chop saw. Then I might try and split this lengthwise on the bandsaw. And then hopefully this will come off easy, because I don't think I'm not even going to try and get this out. Especially since it's been hot melt glue here in the bottom too. So anyway, let's do that. Still flexible, but it's pretty tough stuff. Boys, oh boys. So that just goes to show you that there's no way I'm still probably going to have a hard time getting this off. uh, whose bright idea was it to use this? Yeah, it was at this point where I said, I'm just going to clean the base of this off and put a glue block on it and put it on the lathe and turn that conduit away because I was going to fight with it all day. I get asked this a lot. This is just an electric frying pan with glue sticks melted in it. That's all this is. And I use this pretty much for the base of all my bowls. And it's tough stuff. It takes a lot to take that glue block off the base of a bowl, and actually it was locked onto this pretty good too. And that conduit, it turned pretty much the same as resin. I mean, it is a plastic after all. Yeah, so I'm cutting it a tendon here so that we can grab this with the chuck again, and that way I can take away the live center from the tailstock. Um, Again, fighting with the resin wrapping around stuff. I cut virtually it all out of the video here, but it is one of the things that will really drive you crazy doing this. Again, I'm just using the 5/8 bowl gouge again. Again, shear cuts on here is just like with wood. They work very well, and I found that to be one of the most effective ways of cutting resin and wood. Give you a nice clean surface. All right, sanding time, 60 to 800 dry. Using the sanding sealer on the wood here again. I just wanted to, before we started wet sanding, I wanted to make sure that didn't absorb too much water. I just cleaned it up with 4-0 steel wool. Wet sanding from 1,000 to 2,500. Yeah, I got these wet and dry sanding sheets from sandpaper.ca, and they do a great job as well. Okay, so here I'm using Triple E. This is the be-all buffing system. This is the Triple E pad, and you'll see just how clear this resin becomes with using the Triple E and then using the white diamond here. The white diamond has a softer polishing cloth, and it really brought the clarity out of that resin. Yeah, this was the last step, putting on the polish, and that really, again, really helped bring that clarity out. Well, I got no complaints about that. Yeah, I figured that now would be a good time to drill a hole for the switch. Again, freeing the piece from the waste block, parting it off. Got it all wrapped up in case something bad happens. They had a whole bunch of that hot melt glue up in the area where the battery is going to sit. So the heat gun was the most effective way to get rid of it. Just soldering up all the connections now, using rosin core solder and a little bit of heat shrink. Here I'm just using a pencil, and I'm just rubbing it along the outline of the void there. And I'll show you how I transfer that to the paper. Just put the paper in place and then just kind of push around the edge of it, and that will leave a mark on the paper. I didn't bother showing cutting of the cover and the base. It was just done on the bandsaw, and then my belt sander, or my disc sander to clean it up. Yeah, and I just put some wood bowl finish on the base of it. A couple of coats. Okay, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll give you a last little look at this. I mean, it's I'm really happy with the clarity of the epoxy. Turn it on for you there too. You know, it's amazing. There's the base. Again, I just put a couple screws in there just to hold that in place. That'll be fine. You know, I'm not totally ecstatic with this. The the tree is too large. I knew that the clear resin was going to distort the image a bit, but I didn't realize it was going to distort it that much. So I'll probably revisit this and redo it in the future. But yeah, it's very, very, I think it's a very cool project. So the other thing that I didn't show, this is the LED light that I used, the switch, and of course the 9-volt adapter. The camera picks those up. It's a 10 millimeter. I got these off of Amazon. I'll try and throw that in the links below as well. The other big thing is we're finally close to 15,000. So at the time of this filming, I'm just short by a little bit. So next week, for the shop tour video, that's what I'm going to do next week. We'll draw a name, and so make sure you come back for that and see if it's you. Could be you. So we haven't actually looked at this thing in a dark room yet, so let's do that. That's pretty cool. It's the first time I've really looked at it in a really dark environment. And of course there's glow-in-the-dark resin in here too. The pieces that I stuck on the sides. Not really that bright. It probably needs to be charged up too though. Anyway, I'll put some stills up at the end. That's pretty cool. All right, so the last thing that I want to say is I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. You know, this COVID-19 has been a devastating thing on the world. And Canada certainly hasn't been any exception to that as well. So, you know, and a special shout out to the troops that are away from their families. That's always a tough thing as well. So anyway, make sure you come back next week for the shop tour video and the announcement of the winner of the 15,000 subscriber bowl. And until then, Merry Christmas, stay safe, and we'll see you next week.